Hello, my name is Ben. Before I begin, I just wanted to say that everything I'm about to say herein is in reference to my book, which is Lands of Souls, Tweaker to Believer. A book I wrote about 3 years ago on an occurrence that happened 9 years ago. So the book is my memoir. It's also my testimony. And in regards to what I'm talking about today, it's also my documentation of what occurred. So if you're interested in my book or more so what I'm talking about, and you want to get more insights on it, I do have a Facebook page, but the Facebook page is actually called Reality Realms, Tweaker to Believer. This was the original name of my book. However, it was very confusing. The title was very confusing, and on top of that, there's a lot of confusing things going on in the book. So I tried to simplify it by changing it to the Lands of Souls, Tweaker to Believer. I left the Tweaker to Believer because I think that's a very important significance as far as the transition from me as a boy to turning into a man. So with that, my book was actually it was very outrageous what happened to me. So outrageous that I didn't plan on writing a book. I planned on keeping it to myself and just ponder on what had happened to me. But then someone helped me realize that my story is a memoir, yes, but it's also a testimony as far as from being bad, living a bad life to the life that I live today. And so, as a testimony, I figured I did have to. It was almost a responsibility for me to write the book because as a testimony, it would have the power to change someone's life. A quick summary of my book. I was a drug dealing, crystal meth smoking, slanging middleman, and I was smoking crystal meth, drinking, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed for about 4 years. I have asthma, and so I had a serious asthma attack. I started having consecutive asthma attacks, 7 in this year in particular, and this asthma attack was so bad, my oxygen levels were in the 67 percentiles, so I couldn't breathe on my own, so they had to put a tube down my throat to breathe for me. I was sedated for about 4 days, and then when I came to, the tube they put down my throat, I was at 97% at this time, 97% oxygen level. They pulled the tube out from my throat, and it caused my esophagus to tear. So the first days of recovery, I couldn't really talk. I had to whisper, and I couldn't eat either. I had to eat. It was a slow process. It went from ice chips to water to juice to Jello to chicken broth. So it took days before I could eat again and stuff. But that wasn't the bizarre part of what happened. During my recovery, since I was so near death but didn't die, I was able to transfer or I was able to shift to different realms or different worlds or different dimensions, if you will. At this point, because this happened 9 years ago, for personal reasons, I could consider it traveling to different dimensions now. So I was temporarily given the power to travel to different dimensions at will. I would close my eyes. It would take a while. It wouldn't be immediate, but I would close my eyes, and then at some point I would shift to a different. I would just shift to a different dimension. Then I was able to shift back. Shifting back was almost right away. Then I could shift to a different dimension, shift back, shift to a different one, and shift back. It was only temporary. A quick answer for it is being so close to death, I prematurely awakened my pineal gland. So if you want to look into the occurrences in my book and what happened in it, if you research the pineal gland, it'll give you more emphasis and more understanding on what happened for me. So, but then in regards to what happened as far as almost dying but didn't, and also able to travel to these different dimensions, I stopped everything cold turkey. I stopped the drug dealing lifestyle. I stopped smoking. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped drinking. I stopped it all. I had to, because I was like, drugs. There's different dimensions. There's different worlds. A shift away. There's a shift away. There's a different world, and you want to talk to me about drugs? I was like, there's a whole nother world. Is a shift away from our life, and you want to talk about drugs? What do drugs do? Drugs do this. I'm okay with doing this. I was like, to be able to shift. So yeah, drugs. No, I had to figure this out. I was like, I need to stay as sober as I can to figure out what just happened, and that it happened 9 years ago. So in a sense, I figured it out. So I did previously start, or through these years, I did start playing with the dimensions. Um, I'll get into that in a few minutes. But it all is involved with what I call the universal lie. And the universal lie is the world that we live in. It's a lie. And this universal lie was given to us before we even knew about God, before we knew about heaven or hell, before we knew about even that was your mom and that was your dad. It was even given to us before that. The universal lie was given not when you were born, that was the process, but it was actually given to us the moment you were, the day you were born. Not, because we're the process of being born is 9 months, so it didn't happen at that point, but the day you were born, the day you came out, and the day you opened your eyes into this world with both of your eyes, that was the universal lie. The 3D world we live in is the universal lie. And what I mean by that is, this is my theory on that. So, if anybody that's read my book knows that when I was able to transfer or shift to different worlds, I was able to do it. It was in a sequence, okay? And the sequence was I would close my eyes, and from there, I would be sound. So the first thing that would shift was my ears would shift, or the sense of hearing was shifted. So I closed my eyes and I would hear these sounds, and then as I would try to recognize these sounds or identify the sounds, from there my senses or my feelings would shift to where all of a sudden I'm feeling grass or water or a textured material or something. So or air going through my fingers. So first was sound, and then was touch, and then finally I would open my eyes, and the eyes would be the last thing, and the eyes are which the eyes were the last part, but they were also the most significant part. They were the final part that put me into this dimension, if you will. And so, why do I compare it to being born? Because when we're born, what happens? The first thing that happens in a pregnancy, the first thing that's made materialized is the heartbeat, and then followed by the other parts of the senses. I don't know. I didn't Google all that, but what I do know is that the eyes are the last development in the womb. The eyes are last, and they're not even done yet when you're first born. When you're first born, you're you could actually consider legally blind because of how poor your eyesight is. And so, the way I see it in my theory, based off of what happened to me, when it's the same thing. It's more of the same. So we're coming into this world. We're born. Entered into the womb, and first everything else is developing, but it's developing as stitches to keep us here. And so another angle to look at it is when I'm talking about shifting. This is what I mean. If you're right here and you shift your eyesight this way, and from there you shift back, and you shift this way, and you shift back. That's simple shifting, right? But then if you close your eye, then your view is right here. You close the other one, open this one. Now your view is here. But if you go back and forth, it seems like all you're doing is shifting from here, and then shifting to there, and then shifting back to there. So our brains are telling us that the shifting is just from here to here to here to here is the exact same as here to here to here. But that's our subconscious telling us based off the universal lie that was given to us from the very beginning. And the lie is because So as you open your eyes, you see the 3D world you live in, but we don't see in 3D. We see in 2 dimensions. This eye is only seeing length and width. It is not seeing depth. Same thing with this eye. It's only seeing length and width. We see depth when we have both eyes looking forward. That is our depth perception. And so when it comes to depth perception, that is where the lie is. Because if this is only seeing 2D and this is only seeing 2D, then the third dimension, depth, that's where the universal lie is. There is no depth perception, but there is, because we tell ourselves there is. So me seeing that from that distance, what I'm seeing from that distance isn't really there, but my mind makes it there. Mind over matter, right? And the universal lie binds us because we tell ourselves that, me looking in through this eye, seeing this side, and me looking on this eye, seeing this side, all that's happening is I'm shifting my eyesight from here to there, from here to there, as if I'm shifting from here to there, but that's not true. When you close your eye right here, this is another dimension. This is the first dimension, or second, however you want to look at it. This isn't shifting your views or your eyesight. This is another dimension. The first or the second, I don't know, but it's only one or two. And this, see how when you open both, it's out of focus. As it goes into focus, it's bringing you into the third dimension that we are in, that we're stuck in, and that we are bound to with our eyes, through our eyes. And with that, the human body is part of the binding, because there's our left hemisphere and our right hemisphere. The left hemisphere controls the right side of the body, and the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body. And so it's split, and because it's split, we can't make sense of anything unless we use both of sides at the same time. And that's on purpose as well, because as long as one eye is closed, this starts to, it gets out of focus. It doesn't make sense. It's confusing, which causes you to want to open your other eye and look with both eyes and make sense of it. But you're bringing it into making sense. You're bringing it into the reality, or the real. You're making it real, even though it may not or may not have been real before you did that. And then they say, every touch is a sense to the brain, to where did you really touch it, or did your brain sensors say that you touched it? So, which in a sense, we are all just living in our brains, but we're all on this plane, or this level of living as a whole. So, in this third dimension, which is not real, because we only see two. We only see this dimension, and then this dimension brings us to the third dimension. And so people say, we live in a 3D world. I don't see it as a 3D world. I see it as we live in 3 dimensions, which equal a world. Okay, as world, where does that sound? But a way of playing with dimensions, the easy way, you look straight, and then you put up your hands, and as you put up your hands, you can see through them. It's like, how come I can see through my hands? Well, the universal lie tells us we can see through our hands because they're not in focus. But that's not true, because all you gotta do is still not looking at your hands, close one of your eyes, and you're no longer seeing through that hand. That hand is solid. It's still out of focus, but now it's solid. You'll go back, and then you can see through your hands again. You close this eye, once again, now this hand is solid, but it was already solid, but your mind told you that you could see through it, and that's where the universal lie keeps us bound by the rules that, our brain made sense of from the time we were born. And we don't remember being born, but our parents do. And we don't remember the first years of our lives, because it was made for us to condition us to stay in this realm, this world, this dimension, and then I feel that 90% of our bodies, of our minds, is to keep us bound to this world. That's why we only have like 10 to 15% of our brain. It's the rest of it's keeping us here. It's giving us the universal lie to keep us from phasing out or travel, astral projecting or what have you. So and so yeah, knowing me with my theories, knowing that this is a whole dimension and this is a whole dimension, and all it takes, and this dimension is controlled by this side of the hemisphere of my brain, and vice versa. Then that tells me that being able to shift, it's just a shift away. These different realms and worlds are just a shift away. But on this dimension, the next shifting on this dimension, there's two dimensions that are shifted together to bring us this dimension, the third dimension. I know, it's strange, right? I know, but it's so simple at the same time. Talking about these dimensions and the 3D world, and being able to play with the dimensions. It sounds weird, but people do it all the time, and they've been doing it for years. This is a 3D book. In a 3D book, it has 2D images, 2D pictures, but they're 3D images inside the 2D pictures. In order to do these, they give you a way to in the beginning of the book forward. It gives you different ways of how to you to do it, how to see these pictures. But sadly, most people I show these books to, 90%, I'll say 80. We'll go 80. 80% of the people I show this book to have no idea how to do this. They have no idea how to open up and see using the third eye, which is depth perception. We use depth perception all the time, but that's because you're using it based off the universal light that was given to you from birth. You don't understand it, or a person doesn't understand it and can't control it to where they see it for what it is, and be able to, you have to listen to this. You have to listen to what it's saying to do. You have to unlearn the training of your brain to be able to see the images. And from there, it's, once you see first you could never see the images. Then once you see the image, you can't not see the image. And the way these work is, you can't just look and see the image. You also have to have an understanding of what the image is supposed to be. So here's a winged horse. So you're already thinking of a winged horse. You get the image of a winged horse in your mind, and then the image starts to come out. So, but even before you can see the image, you have to think of the image even before you can see a 3D image. So when I do play with the dimensions. When I play with the dimensions, unless you know how to play with the ABC version of playing with dimensions, you wouldn't be able to do the XYZ versions that I did with playing with the dimensions. However, I stopped playing with the dimensions, funny as it sounds, and I stopped playing with the dimensions because, like I tell people that I've read my book, that I've talked to, if you wanted to, you could recreate the occurrences that gave me the abilities to travel to these different dimensions. I couldn't eat meat. I couldn't eat meat for a long time. What else? I had very little food substance. It was like I was almost starving. I was on the brink of starvation because I was able to eat too many good food, or too much food, and my system was cleansed out. I was all the drugs were taken out, and all the all the junk food and stuff, through the IV and stuff was taken out. So I was cleansed of all bad things in my body and stuff. But I don't recommend it because because I, at one point when I was traveling to these dimensions, thinking it was like going to Disneyland and then Disney World and then Universal Studios. One of the times I couldn't get out. I tried to leave and I was stuck in one of these dimensions. That was my reality check. That told me that this, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I could do this. This isn't, we only have 10% of our brain for a reason. In God we trust. Stop, and that, it scared me straight. So with that said, me playing with the dimensions, it was kind of a way, because I see life different, and I think of it different. So I was playing with them, not really expecting anything, I guess. But then a couple months ago, while I was playing with the dimensions, something happened, and so I'm not going to do it no more. What happened was in one of my chapters, there was it's called the Swamp Garden. and in this time when I went to this different dimension, it was like I was still here on this earth. It was like an extension of my room, so to speak, almost like was it where the wild things are. Remember how all of a sudden his room started changing? This swamp was like that. It was like I was like I've never been here before, but I know I've been. You know, I could tell it was obviously my room, but it wasn't, and all that stuff. Um, so when I while playing with dimensions, something similar happened to my right eye, and all of a sudden my right eye was weird, and then from there though, something weird happened after, which is why that was okay. It was tripping me out. It took me a couple minutes for my eye to come back, and then when it did though, it started doing some weird stuff to the side of my body, and then when it did, it kind of reminded me of Phenomenon. Phenomenon was a story with John Travolta, and all of a sudden he had something happen to his brain to where he was exposed to all these powers and gifts and abilities, to where it was like people thought he was like had like godlike powers, but then from there, it turned out he just had like a tumor or something like that, and so he was gonna die. So he was blessed with these powers momentarily, but then from there he was gonna die, and I feel that that was God. So the universal lie is a lie, but it's also God's lie. And God is flawless and God is perfect, which means although it's a lie, it's a perfect lie. And if it's a perfect lie, because it's God's lie, there's no ways of really tapping into it or going into it without precautions, because he's flawless. He's not, so I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I don't know if any of this makes sense or not. I'm surprised that people absolutely believe me, which is cool because I didn't, like I said, I never planned on writing a book, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to different dimensions. I'm going crazy at first, but it is what it is, and God is good, and He showed me what He did for a reason. I'm gonna go ahead and close this. We'll see how this video is, how it is, how it's looked at out there, and we'll go from there. I have other theories based off of my book, which is my energy theories, and some more. And as a spiritual man, I'm a new age spiritual person, I guess, because I believe I'm all about spirituality. I do have a spiritual practice, and my spiritual practice is Christianity, and I practice my spiritual practice religiously, although I feel I'm not a religious person. So, but yeah, as far as spirituality goes, December 12th, 2020 is going to be a very big day. And I do feel that these dimensions are going to have something very profoundly to do with it. I did get December 12th, not December 12th, December 21st. I got December 21st off, and I do plan on having my daughter with me the whole day. And I plan on doing special prayers in certain times of the day in lieu of this very miraculous moment. So, in closing, I found this. I want to share it, and it's basically this says do not ponder on how a brown cow eating green grass produces white milk. Instead, ponder on how a black soul dipped in blood can come out white as snow. Thank you guys.